Hey everybody, Nick Espinosa, your chief security fanatic here, and today I'm asking the question, are we finally seeing an end to Facebook? Now here's what's going on, and there's a lot of information that I want to dive through, both recent and historical. That kind of leads me to that possible conclusion, although I will give you my thoughts really soon. Now, we all know what happened a few days ago or so. Facebook missed their quarterly goals and by virtue of that lost $230 billion in value. Mark Zuckerberg himself, founder of Facebook, obviously lost $31 billion in a single day, which is actually more than the entire GDP of Latvia. He is now the 10th richest person in the world, so I think he's doing all right overall. Now, that said, Zuckerberg and Facebook blamed a litany of issues for this reason. The first one up was that Apple's new alerting system for their users on iPhones, that basically Facebook is data mining the hell out of them, basically had people stop installing Facebook. Hey, guess what happens? When you inform people that their privacy is being violated, they don't want it violated. Heads up to you, Mark Zuckerberg. Maybe there's a lesson in there. Also, a loss of over 1 million active users, which is the first time that has ever happened in 18 years in Facebook. They are now just under 2 billion active users. So again, massive pool, but losing 1 million users is a significant event for Facebook, not necessarily in terms of total count per capita, but it's the first time in almost 2 decades. Also, they have been spending billions of dollars on Meta and their Metaverse, New Horizons, and also on the world's largest AI supercomputer, which is supposed to be completed mid-2022 in order to support their long-term shift of their current data mining for advertisers revenue model into a virtual world, where literally everything about you and everyone else, including your biometric characteristics, such as your mannerisms, can be data mined and sold to God knows who or done God knows what with them. On top of this, JP Morgan actually downgraded their overall credit rating, and they're basically continuously facing litigation over privacy, as well as calls to regulate them and break them up under monopoly laws here in the United States and other places. Articles are being written about how Mark Zuckerberg's vision of bringing everyone in the world together through first Facebook, now the Metaverse, is essentially dying. Now, the strategic name change on top of this from Facebook to Meta in order to deflect from a massive whistleblower scandal, but also to assure that when people think about the Metaverse, they're thinking of Facebook's version of it, despite there being dozens of competitors out there for the Metaverse already, because Metaverse is a pretty generic term, was essentially why they were doing this. Now, on top of all of this, we have cybersecurity experts such as myself and others, social scientists, and a legion of psychologists and researchers studying how Facebook over the years has caused severe depression in youth around the world. Most importantly and specifically, teenage girls are getting hit, thanks heavily also to Instagram, which they own and which the whistleblower, Frances Haugen, essentially verified that their internal teams knew. They also studied basically how Facebook and how it's prioritized disinformation and how that has deeply harmed the societal fabric of democracies around the world. And this doesn't even count aiding and abetting things like a genocide in Myanmar against the Rohingya population, or even war crimes, as Facebook hasn't been able to police criminals selling stolen art and other items from war zones on their platform, which is against the Geneva Convention. And of course, there are Facebook groups out there that are basically going unchecked that have brought everybody together, from the Flat Earth Society, which talk about misinformation, and neo-Nazis as well. They've got their own Facebook groups globally, and they just keep playing whack-a-mole as Facebook retroactively shuts them down. Sometimes months later, they spin right back up. So with this as the backdrop, it's absolutely laughable that Facebook, aka Meta, could even possibly be in a position to threaten governments in Europe in the last day or so. But that's exactly what they just did, and here's what's going on. This is coming from multiple sources, but I'm coming from MSN. Meta once again threatened to pull Facebook and Instagram from Europe if it is unable to keep transferring user data back to the United States amid negotiations between regulators to replace basically a scrapped privacy pact between Facebook and the EU. Now, EU regulators have for months been stuck in negotiations with the United States to replace a transatlantic data transfer pact that thousands of companies are relying on, but which got struck down by the EU Court of Justice in 2020 over fears that EU citizens' data isn't safe once it's sent to the United States. In its annual report published on Thursday, this is the report that basically showed that Facebook had lost over $230 billion. Meta said that if it couldn't rely on a new or existing agreement, the so-called standard contractual clauses to shift data, then it would, quote, likely be unable to offer a number of our most significant products and services, including Facebook and Instagram, in Europe. Now, Meta has already warned in its previous annual report that it was not allowed to use the standard contractual clauses with the EU, that it would be, quote, unable to operate, end quote, parts of its business in Europe without naming its key two social media platforms. But this round, they named them. And my response to this news is, oh, please, come on. At this point, thanks to their whistleblower, Frances Haugen, as I mentioned, we know that Facebook knows, literally, they know that the world would literally be a better place without them. No Facebook or Instagram would be a great start to repairing the societal damage in Europe, and we might even see a rise in self-esteem from teens as Instagram goes away. I'm all for this. Please pull your products. Plus, Europe is a lucrative market for Facebook products, and if they leave, it would just cement the basically ever-exploding TikTok as the world leader. And I'll also note for the record that TikTok wasn't mentioned by Facebook as part of their population and earnings drop, but given its continuous rise, TikTok is definitely harming them. They're not going to leave Europe. That's insane. And I think in the end, Facebook isn't going to go away tomorrow, but the world is moving on from it slowly as new platforms start taking basically users away from it, as basically people, especially the youth, are spending more time. What this should signal to Mark Zuckerberg and anybody that's really paying attention is that it's time to come up with a new revenue model. Look at the Apple analysis that Facebook did, basically saying, well, if Apple's telling everybody we're data mining them, less people are signing up or people are abandoning our app on their iPhones. That is really telling. The data mining of literally and utterly everything about everyone in order to sell it to advertisers is a dying model, basically because we are now understanding this, and we now have a generation growing up with a changing concept of privacy. I've written articles on this, but that generation recognizes the harm that things like filter bubbles and a lack of total privacy can cause them, so why adopt that model? And if it's bad for Facebook, why even adopt Meta when there are other metaverses out there as well? And so with that, I think hopefully Facebook will die sooner than later, but I think it's going to be a long, slow death. And in the interim, you will hear people like me laying all of this out continuously as we go through that essential litany of problems that Facebook has wrought on the world. And so Facebook, please die a very quick death. And please like, share, follow me here on Facebook and Twitter, because necessary evil, and I apologize for that. Although as they go away, I will be thrilled to shut down my Facebook account, my public Facebook account. And also feel free to subscribe to me at YouTube as well. And as always, stay safe, stay online, and please stay private. Thanks, everyone.